those of you I don't know, my name's John Greindl. I started chainsaw carving about 5 years ago. Took last year off because of some problems in my family. But I do a lot of festivals, fairs, grand openings. I've done a couple of reunions. So it's actually turned into a business for me. I retired from my other company and I've been doing this as a hobby, and now it's a full-time. So I'm working harder now than I was before I retired. Anyway, has anybody ever seen anybody do chainsaw carving? Did anybody watch that show Saw Dogs? Was on the Discovery Channel. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I saw it.
All those guys, I know all those guys. I met them up in Pennsylvania. Once a year up in Pennsylvania they have, in February, of course it's got to be in February when it's coldest it's ever been up there. And they get 200 carvers from 14 countries there for 10 days. And we carve for charity, for Children's Miracle Network, and the last couple of years we've been doing it for the local people there, for the fire and the police and so on. But to get up there and watch and listen to a couple hundred chainsaws running at the same time, and then see some of the art that these guys come up with is unbelievable. I met the fellow that did these horses. I'll pass this around. His name is Chester Armstrong. He went over to Africa and got a slab of wood. He went over there and it took him a couple months to get this slab of wood back to America. And he did this church door, and it has the devil and all the stuff that has to do with religion on it. And he took 2 months carving it, and he sold it for $160,000 to this church. So there is some money in this, but you got to be pretty good. This fellow here, if you saw him walking down the street, you would never think he's the guy that carved those horses or any of those other things in there. It just doesn't look like the fellow, but he's a real inspiration when he's talking to you. And some of these other guys, they travel all over the world doing these things. Japan, Germany, a couple, and some of the people that come to the carving event up there in Pennsylvania, it's called the Ridgeway Rendezvous. Some of those people are from countries that you would never imagine that they would have chainsaws and so on, and they come in and do fantastic work. Just to give you a little idea, a lot of people ask me, how long did it take you to carve that? You know, and if you tell them, you know, that I carved it in 30 minutes, they go, wow, you know. But it took me, you know, 5 years to get to that point where you can actually turn something out in 30 minutes, because when you're doing the shows and the festivals, people want to see it from start to finish. But actually, when you first get the log, you cut it to the size you want it. Then you peel all the bark off of it. If you want the bark off, most people want the bark off of it. That way you can see if there's any imperfections before you start carving. And you can see if there's possibly a chain link fence in there or something, you know, because you can find some strange stuff in a log. And once you get to that point, then you can start carving on it. Once you get it carved, then you do some sanding, and most guys take a torch and burn it, and burn off all the fuzzies that are left over from when you're carving it. And it's the same thing when you're ice carving. On the ice carving, you don't use any oil in the chainsaw, but you use a torch. After you carve a sculpture in ice, it looks frosty looking. The minute you hit it with a torch, it turns into crystal. It looks perfect. So it's kind of the same thing when you're doing the wood. You're getting rid of some imperfections. And then you get into the waiting time for it to crack out, because almost every piece of wood out there is going to crack. And matter of fact, I usually hand out crack guarantees. So somebody says it's cracked, I go, well, I guarantee it would, you know? Because sometimes they crack in the wrong places. And what I do, if it's something very noticeable in the front of the carving, then I'll carve them another carving. Because you can try to repair it, but the minute it gets back out in the sun and the cool air, it's gonna expand and contract just like it does when you're doing stuff on a lathe.
How old wood do you use?
You want it is, I like to carve it when it hits the ground. That's when it's really green. It carves a lot smoother, easier. The two woods I like the most are white pine and cedar, red cedar. The cedar because it's so colorful, but you do have to be careful with the breathing in all the sawdust.
When you, when I've used a chainsaw, if I put the end of the chainsaw in there, you know, it's got a little bit, maybe once I'm using a wider blade, but you have a chance of kicking back so easy.
Yeah,
Do you have a special blade that you use?
Yeah, well, you're gonna see on the saws I have back there, I've got a standard one on a bigger saw for blocking out. It's got a 3/8 low profile pico, they call it micro pico chain on there, which means it's very low profile. And you get a heck of a lot less kickback when you use it. And then the other one is quarter pitch, so it's real small. And when you get these saws, you have to convert them over to a different sprocket and sometimes a different gear to make the oil faster because you're using a smaller sprocket. And what we call that a plunge cut, when you want to go straight in, is to just start the saw at the very slight angle. Once the chain is inside the log, you can straighten it out and just bore it just like a drill, and it won't hop. But you don't want to be going like this or like this. You know, you want to just bring it in, angle it slightly, and then you can go in and plunge cut.
But you don't have to make it like a wider saw. On the lathe, when you're trying to use a parting tool, you go deeper in. If you don't make that hole like 1.5 wide, you know, if you just take the parting tool and stay in, at some point you're going to jam up and stuff on there.
So sometimes it'll catch on you.
Okay.
If you know that if you're going to go all the way through the log, just before you get to the other side, you back up a little and rev it, and back up and rev it and bring it through, and then it won't catch on you and suck it up in there.
Okay.
You do have to be extremely careful if you don't have these particular kinds of saws to do this. A lot of people think they can just grab a regular chainsaw and go out there and start carving stuff with it. And I'm here to tell you, there's some people that are missing fingers. There's a thing on YouTube that came out last week, I think it was, a guy was carving a bench, and he did something and the saw come back right here and just about took his arm off. So you do have to be very careful with it. And wearing eye protection and wearing the chaps. The chaps, I don't know if this pair I got out there has the same mark that all of them I have. They have a chop mark right here where the saw has actually gone against my leg. And it's just something that almost every carver you see, that mark is on the front of their chaps. So I don't know what it is about it. Anybody have any questions on?
Yeah, I think Carl had his hand up there a moment ago.
Is this one solid piece of wood?
No.
More than
Actually, what they do is they'll take several great big pieces and mortise them together and glue them up, and then carve out of that. And you'll see the lines in there. If you were right there looking at that, you'd be able to see the lines in it. But it's unbelievable some of the things these carvers do. You know what a knight's chest protection was with all the chain and all that on there? There's a guy from the West Coast, his named Jeff Sandusky. He carved a thing over in Britain. It had the horse, it had the guy in the full armor, all that detail. And I mean, you look at it and go, how the hell did he do that with a chainsaw? But you know, he does use some chisels and some other things too. That's the other thing I was going to tell you. The fellow I learned from, he's up in Tallulah Falls, and he's chainsaw only. He won't even use sandpaper. But I think that hurts him on his sales because he is such a good carver. If he just learned to do a little more detail, you know, he would really get a lot more money for his carvings. But he's a fellow I watched for about a year, and he come over to my house and he showed me five starting cuts to do a bear, just the bear's head. And he said, that's it, the rest is up to you. So if you want to do anything else, he said, I can't teach you that. That's stuff you're going to have to learn as you're doing it. So
From what I recall from the last time you did this presentation, this is an answer to, I think, Rob's question there. You, on most of your chainsaws, you replace the bar and the sprocket too, don't you?
bar, sprocket, and chain.
All
Because the
three.
chains usually come, usually come with a safety chain now. Most everything you buy at let's say at Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever, the big box stores, they all come with a safety chain on there, which is not good for carving at all. And they do sell ripping chains where a lot of times what you want to do if you can is get a log big enough around so that you can quarter it in quarters. And then the heart of the log, where most of the cracking happens, you carve that away. So it's like a piece of pie like this, and you take that point and make that the back of your carving, and you get a lot less cracking that way. If you take a regular log, like I got back there, like this big around, it's going to crack. Just how much you just don't know, and it depends on the species of the wood too. So,
On any of your pieces, do you ever add epoxy or any kind of filler to it?
I've tried that. I did a competition up at Helen, Georgia. It was called Buzz in the Blue Ridge, and I carved it's about this long, I guess. I carved a mother bear at one end and 3 cubs looking off the side of the log, and then a little cave at the end with just showed a bear's butt going in it. And that thing cracked so bad, and I tried everything I could try on it, and it's just ruined. I don't know what happened. It could be I think it was a poplar log, so, and poplar, I guess, is one that cracks pretty good. So,
What's your, you said cedar, one of your preferences? Red cedar?
red cedar, yeah. What I have out here right now, I got some carvings out here that are done in red cedar, and then what I have is white cedar that I'm going to be carving today. I prefer carving white pine because you can put more detail in it, and it's just like cutting butter. Now I've got 29 saws, different saws. I've got 4 electric ones, which I don't like at all. This guy that carved those horses, he does a lot of it with an electric saw. He hooks a bottle, big old bottle of oil to it, so he doesn't have to worry about filling it up with oil. And he goes at it. I've got mostly steels. They're a good saw. I had a couple of Husqvarnas, a couple of Echoes, and I've got a hydraulic unit where the saws are actually hydraulics. And my neighbors like that a lot better than the loud noises because it just sounds like a hydraulic motor going. So it less vibration. It's not quite as fast as a gas saw, but you can still do the same things with it. So.
Where do you use that one at? At your house only?
Yes, yeah. It's on wheels. It holds 20 gallons of hydraulic fluid. The hard part with that one is just the cost of it to begin with. I mean, it's $8,000 for that unit. But then you've got to put a 50 amp cord on there, and a 50 amp breaker and a cord to match it. And if, like I had to go 40 feet with it, and that cord cost me $400 just for the cord. And then about $300 to fill it up with hydraulic fluid. But actually the hydraulic fluid lubricates the chain. And you don't have to sit there pulling on the cord to start it. You just hit a button and go up and change from one saw to another. So the only difficult part with it is all the hoses. You know, you seem to have them everywhere around you. So. But I've got all sorts of gizmos, like, I don't know if they sell the jaw horse here. Rockwell
I've seen
jaw
them
horse.
advertised, yeah.
I use that for smaller carvings, and I can put them at a different angle, you know, and clamp it down. And I use a motorcycle lift table to put my carvings on so that I don't have to be bending down. The younger guys, they get on their knees and do it. If I got on my knees, I'd have to have an assistant there to get me back up. But the tools you use makes a heck of a difference. I got a little belt sander I bought at Harbor Freight. I do a lot of detail with that because it's so small. You can sand around, make an eyeball. You know, I smooth off the bear's faces and stuff with that, and it just makes it look a lot better. And then I made an eye tool, 2 different sizes, and I found out by reading one of the, I think it was a Carbon magazine I got here, how to do some eyes with you take a Dremel tool and a roofing nail. You put the roofing nail on your Dremel tool and you bend little ears up on that nail. And then you take it and you start the bottom part of the circular part of the nail, and you put that in the wood first and get it started. Then you rock it back and forth like this, and it'll actually do a heck of a nice little eyeball. So if you're out doing something and you can't find your eyeball tool, just find your roofing nail. So anyway, that's about all I have for in here. If you guys want to go back and look at some of the carvings.
What about the designs? Do you design these in advance or just?
What the carving?
Whatever the log looks like.
I just make up my mind what I want to carve, and I just carve it. If it's something I haven't ever done before, I may get a piece of chalk and put some lines on there to go by, and a lot of people do that. Most of the stuff I do out of just memory, and especially the bears. I've done enough bears now that the one thing that got me changing my bears around was I bought a video. It was how to chainsaw carve a bear, and this guy Dennis Beach, he's a master chainsaw carver. He said on there, if I see one more carving where these guys with the arms are stiff like this and there's no knees and there's no elbows and stuff, he said it's going to drive me crazy. And I started looking at mine and went, uh-oh. So I started making more movement in my carvings. And the more movement you put in them, the more realistic they look. And you can make whimsical looking stuff, or you can make them look like a real bear. It just depends on what you think is going to sell. I do a lot of wizard faces, and you'll see these little birdhouse thing back there that I do. It's like a wizard face. It looks something like something out of the I forget the name of that movie, but it's got the wizard face and the mouth open, and the birds go in the mouth, because I carve out the back of it and put a little back door on it. I did a big one about like this for a competition, and I had so many people wanting to buy it. I said, I'm keeping it. I put it in my front yard, and I probably hatched out 20 some odd birds out of there. So I clean it out about once a year. Any other questions?
Marcus, I think you had a question, right?
He covered it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Now this is going to be loud back here, so I don't know if y'all have little earplugs or.
Rob, do we still have that container of earplugs around here?
I got some in the house, I don't know that we have them here.
We'll remove our hearing aids.
Probably have to hear about it.
Huh?
All right, what we'll do is we'll adjourn to the back.
Hairline crack. But that gives it character. So.
What's the big one?
So
What's the big one on the truck?
That's the one on the right is a wolf head. Then I've got a parrot that's out there. He's got a surfboard and a little umbrella drink in his hand, and he's got Hawaiian shirt and shorts on and some sandals.
That's your Jimmy Buffett one.
And then the bear on the left-hand side's got a welcome thing in the front. And then there's some other small ones in there.
What is this one over here finished with? The eagle.
That has Australian timber oil on it, and this is where you hit it with a torch.
Right.
Okay, now when you do it to, I wish I'd have brought the little oak leaf I did, but when you use cedar like that and you sand it down real smooth and put the torch to it just a little bit, and then put clear polyurethane over it, it just wham. I mean, it's like something that's got glass. It looks like glass.
Will you sand that down now, or is that finished?
That's just about finished, you know. I would I may burn it a little, or I may just leave it like that and then put the clear on it. And
What does it cost average? You said you sell them.
yeah, that one there, being that it's cedar, it's a little more expensive. I was selling those in pine for $75. That one I probably asked for about $85 for. And it used to be $100 a foot is what they estimated, but with the economy the way it is, it's closer to $60 a foot now.
Most people buy these, do they keep them indoors or keep them outdoors?
It just depends on what it is. I recommend if you're going to put the clear on there that you keep it inside.
How's that Australian timber oil hold up outside?
It holds up great. Yeah, and you should put it on there once every couple of years.
Okay.
And every time you put a little on, it darkens it up just a little more. And that's a natural color there. And this is the thing I did with the eyeball with the nail. And then I took a screw, countersunk screw, and put it in the Dremel. And I did these parts of the eyes with that to make it look like it's looking over here. You can make them looking like they're looking up. And normally I have this carved out in the back, or you can carve out the bottom of it.
Oh, it's the birdhouse.
Huh? Yeah, that's the birdhouse I was talking about. This texture here is done with this saw. This is called an Eder gouge. It's made in Germany. You have to order it from Germany, and it's $750 just for this piece. So I had it on a much more powerful saw, and it was beating me to death. I mean, you sit there and go like this, and it was throwing the chips into your face and your arms. And I said, this isn't it. Hey, Mike, how are you? So I put it on this saw. And I'll show you the eye tool I made. That's just,
Oh, yeah, okay.
and I put little teeth in it with a Dremel tool. And you can actually get it started like that, and you rock it around like that, and you can actually make it look like the eyes are way in there.
I think it's gonna show up on George's and Tarzan's neck.
Jordan, I have one of those, and I have it hooked up to a rheostat. That's
Yeah.
that, and it works good on the rheostat.
You mean to turn it down some?
Yeah.
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 This is the little belt sander I
Yeah,
was
that's
telling you
good.
about. Actually, when you're doing like this bear here, I always like to smooth out the snout and then leave the rest of it looking rougher. So you just go around here, and then when you get to the eye socket, you can go like this with this thing and put an eye socket in there before you put the eyes in there. This is just all stuff that I kind of come up with as I was going and watching other people. And I think I've got...
You cut the round part of the eye and then go back
Yes.
and put the hole in the middle.
This thing here is very close and similar to what that does. This thing, just this little wheel is $169. But if I'm doing, let's say I don't want to mess around and use the saw to put this curve in here, I can use this and just go like this with it, and it works a lot faster than the saw does.
You say that's $169.
To this little piece.
Yeah, how long does it last?
Well, I've had it about a year, and I haven't even had to sharpen it.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes I debark the tree with it. So you got to buy a diamond tip file to sharpen.
Yeah.
So that's just some of the tools, and I'll move this out here. Oh, I wanted to show you the different bars on the saws too. This is what they call a quarter pitch chain, and that's a dime tip bar on there. They got dime, quarter, then there's one called a toonie, which is almost the same as a regular bar, but it doesn't have a sprocket on it like this one here does. This is 3/8 micro pico, and there's a sprocket on this end of this one. It's not a carving bar. It's just a regular bar. And you'll see that once this thing starts up in that one, I keep the chains real loose so I can sand better with it. Now, you don't think you can sand with these things, but you can. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can, let's say you've got an area that looks rough, you just take it sideways like this and keep going like that with it, and it'll sand it down. And the other thing you can do is do it like this and sand up and down like this while it's running. And this one here you can do it real easy because there's no sprocket on the end and it's much smaller. What I used to do to these saws is I would cut the back end of the cutter off about a quarter of it off of there, and that makes it so it sands even better, less friction. It just, you can plunge cut better with it, everything. It's just, but I quit doing that because it's just so time consuming. But, let me move this out here. You may want to set back a ways from me because the chips do get flying.
Back away a little bit.
That's how done a couple months ago. I guess about 2 years ago.
Did somebody say they could get me a pair of those safety glasses?
Which side's gonna be better to have the camera on?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I like that there in the truck.
Thanks.
Those work.
Yeah.
What are those chaps made of that will stop a chainsaw?
They have, what's it called? Teflon.
Teflon.
Yeah. This one's got a little cut on it.
I'm only
You like that better in the truck?
This saw will be the one I do most of the blocking out with. Anybody that's got a chainsaw, don't use regular gas on any two-cycle engine. It's just the chances of blowing up because of the alcohol content in it.
What do you use?
I use premium high test. And if I can get gas without lead in it, or without alcohol in it, I mean, I get that. Clayton.
I was told that went all in with what's causing the
With all of them, yeah.
The steel will extend your warranty if you use their fuel.
Yeah, they've got 50-50 fuel, they call it.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. Very expensive. That's one thing with that hydraulic unit, I haven't got to worry about the gas prices. Make sure this one. Guess I could have done this ahead
You
of time.
always empty them out at the end of your day.
Huh?
You always empty them out at the end.
No, because I use them all the time. So, summer and winter.
Had somebody tell me that when you didn't empty the fuel out, it would coat up the inside.
It does. If you leave it in there for, if you're going to leave it for a couple of months, it's going to screw the carburetor up.
If that happens, what's the best recovery?
Take it to a chainsaw repair place before you actually blow it up.
Boy, just making noise here. George gave me a bunch of drawer Right now, all I see is chunks of wood.
I should be getting all excited about what's on the ground.
Just kind of look alike.
Yeah, they do.
Y'all look alike.
Hey, George, George,
Firewood in the neighbor's backyard.
George, look at what's on the ground.
They use it right there.
That's mostly the carving part. Now I'll do a little sanding and show you what difference it looks like.
You're downwind from
John, have you ever had one where you got about this far and then you cut off the wrong part?
Yeah, I cut off an ear. It's a sorghum festival. And I looked at it and I had like 100 people standing around. And I just took the saw and I went, and cut the head off, and it fell on the ground, and everybody's going, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ooh. So I carved an eagle out of what was left. And they said, we thought you were carving a bear. And I went, what? Kicked the head underneath the table.
Where you want this?
Right here. This is kind of just a quick bear. Welcome bear, and you can, I do them holding a sign, or I do them like this, and I have the sign says welcome on one side and go away on the other, so it depends on whether your in-laws are there or not, if they're coming over.
Now, is that the motorcycle lift you were talking about?
Yeah. Real handy. Just by adding this little thing in the center, it makes it look like it's smiling a little bit. life.
That
Some
sandpaper seems to
eyeballs in
last
it.
forever on that thing.
Huh?
Usually when I use the sander, it doesn't seem to last as long as that stuff you're using on that one there.
I bought that sandpaper at Greindl. It's a heavy duty stuff. The other stuff I buy at Harbor Freight, whatever, it's got a narrow width direction you got to go and all that, and it comes apart all the time. So
Yeah.
I found this stuff. That kind of makes it look a little better. You saw how I was using it to sand and using the tip to do up in here. So you can do a lot with it. Huh? Oh, that's handy. You can get them for like, if you go over there on a sale, you can get them for like $19. Harbor Freight. Yeah. And what I do with it sometimes is I put it in that jaw horse and I just clamp it a little bit and turn it on. I can take small pieces and just use it like a drum sander.
I can see George having one of them next week.
They got one of them over there too, hadn't they?
Huh?
They got one of them too on the stand.
Yeah.
It's going upright.
Yeah, now I would paint them black.
Oh, you will? I noticed on some of them you got got a hollow place in the middle.
Well, that was just on that little birdhouse.
Yeah, they got
Now, I
one.
used to put marbles in there, but as the carving expands and contracts, the marbles would fall out. They look a little better with marbles in them, but
Somewhere up in the...
you gotta put a claw on this one. Now what I would do is, to make this stand out, is I'd spray paint it black all the way around here and in between the letters, let it dry, and then sand this, and then you just get the black background behind it, and it makes it stand out better. But you can put somebody else's name in there, street address. This one's got a little bit big head, but his head's a little on the big side.
John, put your arm around.
Thank you.
I must not have the imagination. He was like halfway through and said, "Don't look at a bear," and all of a sudden, hey, it's a bear!
Well, I actually made the head a little too big. I would, if this was at home, I'd hack it down. I'd look at it like this, and I'd just go at it again and get it down to the right size. Well, I got hydraulics so I was at home. But when I didn't have them, I didn't have anybody come over to say hi to me.
It's a great smell, that wood itself.
Yeah. Now this saw was dull, that's why I went away from it. I don't know what happened, why it's so dull. But that cut going through here, that was a plunge cut. And you see it goes straight right through it. You can walk right up the tree and go right through it.
the chaps made of?
It's got a, what do they call it, Kevlar?
Kevlar on the inside?
Yeah. And
Kevlar on the outside or the inside?
inside.
Okay.
This is, all of my chaps have one here and usually have one here. I just haven't gotten to this one yet. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, I haven't.
What's it cost for the chaps itself?
About $65.
Okay. That's cheaper than I thought it'd be.
It's a whole
This
lot
is-
cheaper than a leg, though.
Yeah, this,
Yes.
a lot of guys say, I wanted to get into a hobby, you know. Well, this is a very expensive hobby. That saw right there is over 600 bucks. That one there is $7.99, and that doesn't include the chain and the sprocket. And I got that one in there that's got that gouge. The saw itself wasn't nowhere near as expensive as that attachment one.